it just shows that you need to be very much your own doctor and in tune with your body's signals, because no one else is going to be able to do that for you. Now I'm totally fine. And I also have my HCL guard as well that helps with just that stomach acid. And that is a question, because you're saying that histamines help produce stomach acid. So the logic would be, oh, if I have high histamines, then I have a lot of stomach acid. So then I probably wouldn't need HCL guard if I'm suffering from high histamine. But that might not be true. And can you tell us why?
Yeah, no, these are great questions. So that is probably unlikely. And the reason why is because there are 4 different types of histamine receptors, and histamine kind of flows wherever it flows. And so there's a very specific pathway for creating stomach acid. It typically starts with you smelling food like that. The smell starts to trigger gastrin and histamine production for stomach acid. What that doesn't mean is that, like, let's say you have let's say that you meet the criteria. You have, you said yes to at least a few of the things I mentioned at the beginning of the show, or some of the things you've mentioned, Sarah. The chances are your histamine bucket's high, if not overflowing. And actually, unfortunately, most people who have this also end up having low stomach acid. Now, I don't know exactly the mechanism there. I don't think anybody does. It's never been tested that I've seen. But essentially, partly what's happening is that the histamines are flowing throughout the entire body versus being broken down inside the gut and in and around the gut. So I mentioned that enzyme DAO. That's predominantly made by the villi. It's a brush border enzyme inside your small intestine. And so there should be histamine production in and around the small intestine. That is typically a separate process from the smelling histamine and the creation of stomach acid histamine process. So there could be some overlap. I can't explain how it could be one way or the other. I think it's a little too complicated from my understanding of the histamine biochemistry, but I'll just say from a clinical standpoint, just having an overabundance of histamine or identifying as mast cell activation or histamine intolerance does not mean that that you have great stomach acid or too high a stomach acid. In fact, I usually find it the opposite, which is that the majority of the people who have histamine intolerance issues also have things like low stomach acid.
So by taking the DAO enzyme, you are not lowering your stomach acid. Would that be correct?
That's true. Yep.
Okay. So that's not going to affect your stomach acid. That's really interesting.